Hello and welcome to Newsmax Now. You're looking at President Obama. He is getting ready to announce a big announcement from the White House.
That's right. President Obama expected to announce the nomination of General Joseph Dunford, who you see off his left shoulder there, to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Let's take a listen into the president.
And we'll have an opportunity to pay tribute to you in the months ahead. I've relied on you both, your advice, your counsel, your judgment, as we've navigated the urgent challenges of recent years, from ending our combat mission in Afghanistan to leading the international coalition to destroy ISIL, conducting humanitarian operations, from typhoon relief in the Philippines to fighting Ebola in West Africa, and strengthening our security alliances from Europe to Asia. At every step, you have been critical to our processes, and I have valued not only your counsel but your friendships. At the same time, Marty and Sandy have helped to guide our forces through difficult fiscal times, especially sequestration. They've stayed focused on readiness and training and modernization. Today, there are also more opportunities for women in our armed forces. We're tackling the outrage of sexual assault, which has no place in our ranks. We've made progress, in large part because leaders like Marty and Sandy have made sure we're recruiting and training and equipping and retaining the best fighting force on the planet. I look forward to honoring Marty and Sandy and thanking them more fully for their extraordinary contributions to their nation, to our nation. There are other things we're going to miss. We're going to miss Marty's incomparable singing voice. He will not be singing today, but I'm going to put my request in early for a final number at your farewell. But on behalf of myself, our entire national security team, and our armed forces, thank you. And to Deanie and to Mary, we are grateful for your family service. My choice for the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Joe Dunford, is one of the most admired officers in our military. A native of Boston, Joe is the very definition of Boston strong. The son of a retired Boston police officer and Marine veteran of Korea, Joe followed in his father's footsteps and has distinguished himself through nearly 40 years of military service. He's commanded Marines in the field, from the platoon level to a Marine expeditionary force. During the invasion of Iraq, he led Marines in the charge to Baghdad. Given his combat experience, I was proud to nominate Joe as the commander of American and coalition forces in Afghanistan. I've had a chance to work with him. I have been extraordinarily impressed by Joe, from the Situation Room, where he helped to shape our enduring commitment to Afghanistan, to my visit last year to Bagram, where I saw his leadership firsthand. I know Joe. I trust him. He's already proven his ability to give me his unvarnished military advice based on his experience on the ground. Under his steady hand, we've achieved key milestones, including the transition to Afghan responsibility for security, historic Afghan elections, and the drawdown of U.S. forces, setting the stage for our combat mission there. So Joe's a proven leader of our joint force, including our troops in Afghanistan, who he served Christmas dinner to. He's one of our military's most highly regarded strategic thinkers. He's known and respected by our allies, by members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, and by colleagues across our government. He's also tireless. His staff has been known to carry around a voice recorder to keep up with his commands and new ideas. He just began his service as Commandant of his beloved Marine Corps, so Joe, I appreciate your willingness to take on this new assignment. I think the only downside in my book is, as a White Sox fan, there is yet another Red Sox fan who I'm going to have to be dealing with. And I want to thank you and your wife Ellen for your continued service. In General Paul Selva, we have a vice chairman with 35 years of military service, as both a pilot and a commander. As leader of Air Mobility Command, he earned a reputation as a force for change and innovation. I understand that when it was time to deliver the final C-17 to the Air Force, Paul went to the cockpit and helped fly it himself. As head of Transportation Command, he's been committed to the partnerships that are a core principle of our national security strategy, whether it's supplying our joint force around the world in operations large and small, to supporting and keeping safe our diplomats and embassy personnel overseas. Paul also served as Secretary of State Clinton's military advisor for the first years of my presidency, so he grasps the strategic environment in which our forces operate. He understands that our military, as powerful as it is one tool that must be used in concert with all the elements of our national power.
All right, there you hear President Obama with the nomination of General Joseph Dunford there to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the next chairman of that body, talking about his leadership both in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right, he's had quite an extensive career, 40 years in the military.
Yes.
You heard the president there talk about how he helped lead the invasion into Baghdad during the war with Iraq. Also was the commander of coalition forces in Afghanistan as well. And
you might hear this later on today. One of the stories that's been talked about with Dunford early on here is that he has had a very rapid rise to this position, going from a one-star general to 4 stars in about 3 years. Of course, he succeeds General Martin Dempsey, who took over the highest rank of the U.S. military back in October of 2011. We heard President Obama at the very onset there talking about the service of General Martin Dempsey, thanking him for his service in that position as well.
And also calling Dunford, I liked this, saying that he was the very definition of Boston strong, even though he is a Red Sox fan. He's going to let that slide, being a White Sox fan.
Well, he also said, the president said, I know Joe and I trust him. And of course, the president needs a lot of military advice right now as things continue to simmer in the Middle East. And we want to talk about that a little bit more because the Middle East and terrorism has come home, at least in Texas. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll also, Miranda, talk about Mike Huckabee's big announcement coming up here as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy day right here on Newsmax Now. Thanks for joining us.
All right, let's go ahead and let's... As we mentioned, we want to go ahead and give you an update on the investigation, and ISIS now claiming responsibility for that terror attack in Texas. The 2 shooters, identified as Nadir Sufi and Elton Simpson, now under the microscope of federal investigators. They were killed by police or security officers outside the exhibition of drawings of the Prophet Mohammed. ISIS says this is the first of many attacks here on U.S. soil and didn't offer any evidence that the group actually had any direct links with these 2 men. Police are continuing to investigate their home in Arizona. Sufi's mother says she does not blame the officer who killed him.
When your child dies under these kind of circumstances, it just leaves you numb and empty.
Sharon Sufi says she just does not know why her son would do something like this.
It turns out the other man, Elton Simpson, had been on the FBI's radar for years. Over the course of 2 years, Simpson told an FBI informant that democracy was a threat to Islam and swore to fight to the death. 5 years ago, the FBI took Simpson to court saying he wanted to join terrorists. A judge ruled there just wasn't enough proof.
Well, Donald Trump has been speaking out against the event organizer of what took place in Texas. Pamela Geller on Fox News. Donald Trump was asked why the event had to be in the middle of Texas doing something on Mohammed and insulting everybody. Speaking about the attack, Trump says it's disgusting and it looks to him like Geller is somebody who is just taunting Muslims.
Charges are now being upgraded against that man accused of shooting a New York City police officer in the head over the weekend. Officer Brian Moore died yesterday. Hundreds of police officers stood at attention while his body was carried out of a Queens hospital. The suspect, Demetrius Blackwell, had already been arraigned on attempted murder charges. Prosecutors say he'll now face first-degree murder.
All right, much more to come here on Newsmax Now. We're just getting started. Checking in a few moments ago, the president, big announcement, General Joseph Dunford will be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And also, make sure you stay tuned with us here throughout the day. Big day here at Newsmax TV. Big announcement coming from Dr. Ben Carson on Newsmax Prime. We're going to talk about that.
That exclusive interview with our very own J.D. Hayworth.
Yeah, we know he's in the race. We're going to talk about what he plans to bring to the conversation, some specific areas where he feels like he can make a big difference. That airs tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Newsmax TV. That's DirecTV channel 349, Dish Network channel 223, and Verizon Fios channel 115. Of course, you can always check Newsmax TV for other sources of that information. Stick with us. John Bachman, Miranda Khan, we're going to be here. We'll be right back after this.